All right, for those of you that are going to stick around, I'm just going to go through a mock presentation because one of our speakers, Melissa Meade, could not make it due to a medical emergency. So with the time left, I'm going to try and go through this presentation that we had given at Bucknell University not too long ago on a mine pool forum on the beneficial uses of abandoned mines. So I didn't really change anything, but I will go through this and kind of give you a quick rundown on Mosaics, maps, and multi-colliery hydrogeologic units. That as a term came up with Roger Hornberger, a former colleague of ours from the Pottsville District Mining Office. And we'll talk about some of our efforts to advance mine pool mapping models to address AMD throughout our anthracite region. Initially here, the brochures are just kind of giving you a rundown on EPCAMR. We'll leave this for the presentation, so we're short on time for this here, but you're welcome to take a look at this particular presentation as it gets uploaded to the conference website. But typical brochure on EPCAMR's region and the coverage area that we work in throughout northeastern and north central Pennsylvania. And our mission to reclaim a lot of the abandoned mine sites and work on AMD projects throughout this region and look to clean up mine lands, do environmental education and outreach, provide technical services, and do some watershed monitoring, assessments, and implementation projects, as well as a lot of our niche area is in the mine pool and mine mapping for the state. Just typical services, different areas of work and some of the outreach programs that we do. You can take a look here, but as I mentioned, a lot of monitoring, a lot of stream and culvert assessments, trout stream habitat restoration, mine mapping, three-dimensional modeling, and a lot of educational programs in our more underserved communities with our partners at the conservation districts and a number of universities and schools at both the high school, collegiate, and elementary level. Just give you a quick rundown and a sort of artistic rendition of one of the areas up in the Lackawanna Valley in the northern anthracite coal fields that shows you a typical cross section of the sort of two different basins up there that we have, where a lot of the water that is down in the underground mine pools in the Lackawanna River watershed that drains out to the Old Forge borehole, which is probably, if not the largest, the second largest to the Jetto Mine Tunnel in the Nescopec watershed, of impacts to the Nescopec Creek and then to the Susquehanna River. And here in Old Forge, it goes into the lower 3 miles of the Lackawanna River and turns it pretty orange, loaded with iron. Trying to show you some examples of some of the historical efforts that have been done. There were reports that we've done and a lot of underground mine studies and research that was in the western middle and the southern anthracite coal fields that we did back in 2011. There were some regional mine pool evaluations that were done. We also did the MCUs, or the multi-colliery hydrologic units, with our former district mining engineer, Roger Hornberger, to explain how taking some of the 2D maps and we can convert them to three-dimensional models using a lot of the elevations that were on the 2D maps. And so that's where we really got into this modeling work that we were doing. And in the southern and northern region, the 3D models were completed for both the Susquehanna River Basin Commission as a project we worked on with them in 2014. And Mike had done some other work as an approach down in the Northumberland County area in the Shamokin watershed to look at an approach to mine subsidence and infiltration and flow loss areas above previously mined areas that is led to some of the underground mine problems. And like Quaker Run, the project that's in Shamokin Creek, is being looked at. And Mike had done some work down here with the, I think it was Northumberland County Economic Development Corporation, right? To look at that in the industrial park area. So initially, it's like, just to give you an idea, historically, we're talking, 2014, 10, 11, that's 11 years ago. A lot of the early work started just looking at some of the structural geology and the hydrogeology of maps, which is all we had at that time. We didn't have any of the mine mapping efforts that were going on that we were doing in the last probably decade or so. So we were taking information like this that showed a lot of the historic contours of various coal veins and also old reports of mine pools that were based on pump drawdowns and tests that were done by previous studies when there was still a lot of active mining. So the pools were actually a whole lot lower and didn't cover as much area. So there were several portions of this. We have plate 1, plate 2. All this stuff can be found on our website, at EPCAMR's website. And this is mostly for the eastern portion of the Western Middle Fields and what was the previous one? Okay, it's both of them. So these are 2 different areas. Multi-Colliery hydrologic units were what we would have considered the mine pool boundaries at that time, separated by various barrier pillars until we did further work on them. And then we would do a combination of the orange areas, and then we updated it with that aquamarine color of the mine pool geobasins and kind of put them both together. It's kind of a messy map here, but you have to look at the old and the new, and it shows expansion of mine pool volumes and sort of elevations of the pools. Currently, at that point in 2014, when there was a whole lot less mining and pumping going on, so water elevations typically rose, and then we expanded our pool areas. The video I'll show after, because I don't know if it's going to run while I do this here, but I'll show you a mind mapping video as I get through the presentation of another project we did down in the southern end of the Wyoming Valley in the Mackinac area in the Black Creek watershed, where we mapped out all of the 5, I think it was 5 or 7 coal veins, individual layers, and found out that there was 5 basins, and they were all being drained to one tunnel called the Mackinac Tunnel through a series of rock tunnel drainage systems that were interconnected to bring water from one basin to the next and to the next in lower elevations. It typically happens in the Anthracite region with some of the larger discharges. So we'll show that in a little bit. I wanted to kind of just quickly talk about the steps to processing the mine maps. You know, what we have to do and what our staff does at the office under an agreement with the state's mine subsidence insurance program is to scan the maps, historic mine maps that are in DEP's Wilkes-Barre office, the DEP's Pottsville District Mining office, the Deep Mine Safety, all these areas where maps had not been digitally archived and they're just sitting in a rack or in a hole somewhere or in the basement in a flood zone. We took all those and digitized those and archived them and catalog them for the last, probably 12 years now, and we're still doing it. And we geo-reference them as well. We use a different grid system if it's available for multiple mine collieries and companies. And we set a series of different points on the maps, 4 of them at a minimum, to kind of get a good picture of the location of where they're at so it's not distorted. And we create this mosaic data set, which is a quilt. Kind of the underground mines for both the surface and the underground areas in different layers for each vein. And in the anthracite region, you can have upwards of 23 veins of coal. So we're talking quite a bit of number of veins to be going through up and down our valleys and ridges in those areas. So we vectorize the lines, the points, the polygons from the map. So we're taking elevations of shafts, elevations of tunnels, outlets, inlets, the bottoms of the coal, if that's still there, from the areas that are still supporting the room and pillar methods that were used in the anthracite, and I think in the bituminous as well. And we record those entries of the slopes, the shafts, the tunnels, and if they make it to the surface, that gives us a good elevation at the outlet for where they used to drain them by gravity. And then we would trace the boundaries of the mined out extents for every coal vein, which is a tedious process, but that's what the staff and I and Mike have been doing for a number of years now. And then we would create these 3D mine maps using, we call it Z, the cloud point data, and the boundaries in a tool in ArcGIS. And Z is basically, X, Y, Z is your depth or it's your thickness, and we use that and we could pull that from the maps. So if you may have heard about this, the Mind Map Atlas is somewhere you can go to see where all of these maps have been put into the inventory, and you can toggle things on and off all the way down to a municipal level and even down to your street level. So anywhere in the anthracite or in the bituminous region, if you live in that area, you want to pop in your address, it's going to pull up every map that you can imagine from the surface or the underground. That's historic, up to various years of when mining has occurred, and then the state would use this to help you really take a look at your risk for mine subsidence insurance, and then you can get insurance through their MSI program. But it has multiple uses beyond the MSI program. I'll give you an idea what a typical surface map looks like, and you can see the roads, the streets, any railroads, surfaces, areas. There could have been shafts, old colliery boundaries, and we would take a look at these areas and reference points at the surface and get surface elevations. Then you would have underground mine maps. This might not be a really good one. I don't think it's showing up too well. There may be others. We would use cross-section maps. This happens to be the Centralia Basin underneath Centralia. You can see we have these really huge synclines, some anticlines in there, but huge synclines that run up and down the valleys with various coal measures and veins popping up on one side and the other side on the flanks of each side of the valley. When we work in ArcGIS, it doesn't know where to place an image when you have no sort of location information. And as soon as you just put a map out there, it shows up in Ecuador because it doesn't have any control. So we put the control points on the maps to give it a spatial location. And when you try and find georeferencing points, you use the information that's on the maps. So when you're scanning, we take down these colliery names, the county, the municipalities, any coal vein names that might be on them. We use Esri's base maps to find different general locations. And PA's here at Penn State has imagery that we can match different features. And some of the most effective georeferencing points and features are going to be old buildings, road crossings, bridges, and an existing grid, because you don't want to do it to a stream because streams move. And you want to put it places where foundations like concrete or structures are going to be, because they're not moving anywhere. And the grid system is used by different collieries, at least in the Anthracite region, and they each have their own. We line them up, and it helps us to line up the underground mine maps when they're in the same colliery. So those areas get looked at, and then we have a compilation of these different systems from the number of collieries that were up and down the valleys in our region. So you have a control point. You snap to the map to the correct area. This is up in Jessup, PA, in the Lackawanna Valley. And you get a second point, and that kind of rotates the map and flips it a little bit. The third point, when you have three and you see how they're spaced out there, almost like a triangle, that brings the map into the correct scale. And the fourth point is really reducing what we call residual error that we look for, and that puts the map pretty much on as close as we can get it using ArcGIS. And so as you're creating a mosaic data set, you're creating this quilt-like visualization of each of the mined out areas for every coal vein. And we try and choose the best maps for each vein of coal, and the clearest maps that have the most information, they're either at a 100 or 400 scale that we're using. And we often replace those when we're doing the quilts, because we're like creating a puzzle for each coal vein for the length of the down the valley and on either side of the valley when we pull these maps in. And so each mosaic kind of consists of what we call a set of footprints, and then the footprints really outline the boundary of the extent of the coal measures, and that's how we are told to do it for the state. And then each footprint contains like the most usable section of a particular section of the map. The way we would do something called vectorizing, or when you're digitizing them, you kind of mark the shafts, the slopes, and the elevations, and it's only if they come to the surface. Think of it like an elevator in a store. Fourth floor to the first floor, it's going straight down from first floor to the fourth. The same thing happens in a mine, but you want that elevation at the surface to be matched up at every level going down underneath the ground. So we do that when those shafts and drifts and slopes come up to the surface. And then we would draw a polygon around that mining area and feature, and cut out areas that are not mined. And sometimes there are these donut holes, we call them. And then we would mark the various coal elevations, which are not really easy to read on some of these maps. And you're constantly zooming in to make sure you got the right numbers and you're not mixing up the numbers on the maps. And we mark those elevation points. You can see what a shaft looks like on the map. So there's a lot of symbology that you learn and we teach to our staff to make sure they can recognize them. If there's 3-compartment, 4-compartment, single compartment shafts, you can look at elevation points that are on the map. areas that have like diagonal lines where there would be the room and pillars. If they got the diagonal lines in the maps, you know that that area has been mined out completely. And so there is no coal in that area. They just didn't like take an eraser and remove the pillars. They just put the diagonal lines through them, and you could tell how much of it was removed when they retreated from the underground mining as they went into second and third mining to remove the coal on their way out and rob the pillars, as you probably heard. Here's a vectorization, and kind of you trace that map. There's not really a need for us to go in and out of every one of those areas. We really want to just understand the extent of the mined out area of that particular vein and how it goes in and out on the maps. And so here's an example of just mine workings that were traced to multiple veins in the Lackawanna Valley of the Dunmore number 1, 2, and 3. And you could see some overlapping, but if you had the elevations, which we would show, we would know that on a 2D map, it looks like this. On a 3D map in a model, we would know what the elevation difference is between each of those veins because we've taken the elevation points off the maps. So for the mine workings and the mine openings and the elevation points, they all get vectorized as well. And that would be like what a finished product looks like. And as the mosaics are completed and puzzled together, we would digitize the mine workings for an entire topographic quadrangle map and work that one at a time and work our way up and down any of the valleys and the coal fields that we're working with, particularly the anthracite. Now, there are other universities doing it in Western Pennsylvania and the bituminous region too, but EPCAMR has been doing it pretty much for the entire anthracite with some help from the Harrisburg University Science and Technology and the Harrisburg Area Community College. And we've had to do some QA, QC work on them and their work as students to make sure we can improve some of the mapping. There's another area that just shows like if we had an overlay of a surface map with an old coal breaker on it, then we could put that overlay on the area where there's still waste coal piles. This happens to be down in the Stackhouse Colliery in the Shikshini area. And we could just put a transparency layer on it. It's right along Route 11 in Shikshini. And it matches up very well because we go out on the ground truth it. We find the engine house walls and the breaker foundation walls. And then everywhere we go where there's an image file, a JPEG, those are just, we can click on those in our program and pull up any abandoned feature or mine discharge or a shaft or an old slope or features on the mine that would be available for us to take a look at. And you can see there's different areas like Patty Run and Rocky Run, and some places you see there should have been a stream there, and then the stream goes right through the waste coal pile or it goes underground and it's lost. And we look for those points. Another map here, you can see, it shows where there's areas that have been mined out. Up here where the diagonal lines are for this particular seam, and some other points that we've walked along these areas and found discharges as well as mine openings that need to be backfilled, and we determined whether or not they're pre-77 or not based on the last time this area was mined, and then it becomes eligible for the funding we're talking about a lot here at the conference. When Mike was doing that traffic light area, is it safe to build? My buildings can't get the mine subsidence insurance. It's for residents only. But when buildings are taken into consideration, whether we want to put a 1 million square foot facility up, I think they should take a look at some of the mine maps to know what they're building on. So when we did this project down in Northumberland County, this kind of just shows the different areas of work and examples when we did it with Seedco in Northumberland County, and we did it in the Anaco Creek on a stream restoration project that Earth Conservancy worked on here in Luzerne County. Down in Seedco, Mike did this analysis, and pretty easy to understand. It's like, is it 0 to 50 below? Do you want to be there? Yellow is 50 to 100. Below the ground, green, okay, it's 150 plus. Maybe you're safer to build on that. But if their areas are say no, 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 you don't want to be building in those locations where just 50 feet below the surface, it could potentially subside on you. Same with Anaco Creek, and as they're doing this project now, when we helped to do this analysis for them with that similar stop light measure, we were finding flow losses for the Anaco Creek, and they were going to do a stream channel restoration to put the stream on the surface, and we wanted to keep them out of the areas where 0 to 50 were. And as they were rerouted the stream, because it was rerouted once before during mining, we found the areas that was really basically better for them to put the channel that you see there, Nanaco Creek, bone dry, but the area to the bottom right there is a trout stream at the very headwaters that they're trying to reconnect up now. And we found a path forward for them to do their stream restoration. And that's a $17.5 million project to replant, restore, revegetate, put the stream back on the surface, and remove water coming out of the Ascom borehole, which is one of their treatment systems that they're actively maintaining and treating. And we could reduce flow into the mine pool workings so that we can abate, you know, that particular area and hopefully reduce the amount of water that needs to be treated downstream. So when you, you know, can you digitize these areas without mine maps? Yeah, if you have cross sections or like drill logs that are available, there's another program and thing that we do called 4DVX, and we heads up digitize the maps. And it was developed, there's other areas of interest that were developed by Dynamic Graphics and Mike Dunn, who was a former colleague and mentor of Mike and mine from the Pittsburgh Office of Surface Mining, that helped us learn how to use Earth Vision and Global Mapper and some other software that we are able to utilize as a TIPS, a technical innovative like partnership program and services that OSM offers to other groups. But nationally, EPCAMR is one of the folks that has an MOU with OSM to be able to do this, because some of the work that we're doing, we're providing it for the public and our nonprofit groups. So it's kind of like, I always call it like hanging your clothes out to dry. We take a clothesline and run the mind maps across the clothesline, and you have the cross sections. And so you're really connecting up the cross sections, and then you got to digitize this information across this, in this case, the Mid Valley and the Lackawanna Valley and Lackawanna River watershed in Lackawanna County. So that's the curtain. Mike has a little model here, but you would digitize the different veins, and each time you do that, you're getting an elevation in the software that tells you how the coal is actually rolling. And if you see features like faulting, we can incorporate the faults into the software, and that helps us, you know, kind of divvy up some of the mine workings. And so what you end up having is this like cross-sectional area. And this is down in that stack house in the southern part of the northern fields in Shikshini area, where it's going all the way across. And each of one of those are mine maps, cross-sections. And we were able to pool every one of the coal veins out of there. And there are like 7 of them you see up there in the top left that get shown. And we can develop the thicknesses of the coal. And then if there were boreholes into those areas, we would know where the water is sitting in the mines. And a lot of places we don't have any sampling or data for the boreholes yet, or not at least recently. And so we try to get those to help to determine what the mine pool volumes of water are that are in these areas, in the areas that aren't mined out. So that's the presentation. I want to see if I can get the video to run real quick for you. I know things are closing up over there, so I might have just ended right on time. But I think there was a video I could show. Let's see if I can pull it up. Where was that? Oh, that was on the website. Okay, video. Oh, it's actually on YouTube. I don't know. This one. Okay. All right, let's see. I don't know if I can pull the video. I don't know how to get the video. Yeah, I mean, if you look at shamokincreek.org's website, you'll see the entire list of all the presenters for this conference that was held back in June. And there's a video link. So I have trouble bringing it in to the computer here right now, but there's a PDF of this presentation there under the session 2, and there's a video that you would be able to watch. I'm just not being able to pull it up right now. Yeah. So if you go to shamokincreek.org /conference 2025, you'll be able to find both the PDF and the video. Thank you for the filler.